Hello, this is Dr Maurice Duffy, and I'm joined this morning with Jagtar Singh, who's the chair of the Coventry and Warwickshire NHS. And I'm absolutely delighted and privileged that you could make the few moments to join us, Jag.
Thank you, Maurice. And I'd probably echo that by saying I'm the very proud chairman of a very good trust with some excellent staff, but also proud to have been an ex-fire officer as well.
Yeah, and we'll kind of get into that. Obviously, this is a very difficult time for for everybody around the world. There's nobody that's not touched by this. This is a crisis that we have never experienced in our lifetimes, or in decades, or even if it's not centuries. And I can't start without touching upon the NHS, and the round of applause for the NHS was fantastic last night, as it was for all of those support and help people who are getting us through this crisis. What is happening within Coventry and Warwickshire? How are you coping? Where are you at right now?
Well, first of all, about the applause, I think anything can uplift our staff at this moment in time when they're working all the hours God gives and doing the extra effort that's required at this time to support our communities and our loved ones is appreciated. So to everybody that was stood outside clapping, and those that couldn't stand outside that applauded the NHS and other emergency workers and essential workers, thank you. How are we coping? It's in times of need, it's in times of crisis where people step up. It's when fast, accelerated change happens. It's when innovation comes to the fore. And I've seen things that were taking months, maybe even years to happen overnight. And a good example of that is how we are now doing e-consulting. So patients are being looked after by my excellent clinicians in the safety of their homes through e-consulting, through conversations like you and I are now having. Mm. And a simple example that strikes home to me is my wife has been suffering from high blood pressure. She's also got ME. And the tablets were having all the negative effects that some tablets have. She called the doctor in the morning. Within 2 hours, she'd got an e-consultation from the doctor. A month ago, that would have taken 3 days. Mm. So I'm so pleased that out of this new normal will come a much better way of working. Of course, there will be consequences. There will be downsides. But I'm the kind of person who's an optimist. I think we will come out of this stronger and in unity.
And I would agree with that. But, and as a person who deals with change, I think that there will obviously be changes within the social, within the physical, within the behavioural, within the workings, all of that stuff. But, again, just, people will be interested in, your views on, where we're at. And, I'm sure nobody has got, well, I do have a magic wand, actually, because my son was waving at the NHS earlier. He was waving it. I saw, but it's not quite a magic wand. But, any views that you have on, what you think can help, where you think people are doing well, what do you see the future being like, coming as a chair of a huge trust, you must have some inside information on what's happening and where we're going.
Well, first of all, I think the issues that are out there in the public domain around personal protective clothing for our staff, testing of our staff and our patients, I can give you assurance that everybody in the system is doing everything they possibly can. It's not good enough, it's not fast enough, but that's because we all feel the pressure and the tension. But I don't think anybody is dragging their feet. So, for example, my local university, Warwick University, they've stepped up to the mark. They're now able to produce PPE. They're able to help with the testing. Local industries that were traditionally doing other work have turned their hand to producing PPE. We're now getting them those fast-tracked and tested so they can be out there used by all essential workers that need PPE. In the testing world, we've seen the fastest adoption of testing regimes. They will be out there very quickly. It won't be as fast as we want, but it will be there faster than it would have been 6 months ago. We will have a vaccine produced for this illness faster than any vaccine has ever been produced before. So I think we've got great hope. I think there's three types of people in this world. There's the optimist and the pessimist. And you know about those. One thinks the glass is half full, the other one thinks it's half empty. But there's people like me who are realists. Whilst they're arguing about whether it's half full or half empty, I will drink the water or the whiskey whilst they're arguing about half full or half empty. And that's what we need. We need more realists, less pessimists and less optimists. Let's get on with the day job. Let's get on doing it, and let's support all those people doing a difficult job.
And I'd echo all of that. But, you know, I have to pick you up. You still owe me that night on the whiskey. So I'm looking forward to that one, right? A night of whiskey with an Irishman and an Indian, right? That'll be good fun, I would say. But you know, sorry. Go again.
Coventry, Irish.
Yes. You know, you are a leader, you know, of a big trust, and you are a leader that I admire, and you bring many of the qualities to leadership that, you know, that I try and teach and educate other people on. You know, and if you were to give advice to people that were sitting at home right now in isolation, or that were listening to this, or even NHS staff that are at home, you know, isolation is a very difficult thing to go through. So, you know, I'm kind of curious in looking at you. You know, I know you're in isolation right now. You know, how do you fill your day? How do you manage your day? How do you structure your day in order to make sure, you know, that it has meaning and that it has an output?
So, as I say, for me, I'm a generally very optimistic person, and I believe that there's not everybody can be like I can. Therefore, I need to understand the anxieties and stress of those people that are feeling that the most. So how can I support those? So I've actually forwarded on your links on your podcast. I think they're inspiring, help people with issues around anxiety and stress. Your brilliant podcast on Taming the Monster is a particularly good one to look at. I also think there's tools and apps out there that people in the mental health world have got out there, such as Shiny Minds. So there's lots of tools to help people. But you know what? The thing that I miss the most is the face-to-face interaction. And I think those people crave that. And the way that I can support that, I know which members of my staff, I know which members of my family, I know which members of my golf club are at this moment in time feeling isolation and anxiety and stress. So I ring as many of those as I can in a day, not too many. It's a bit like how much news can you take on board? Watch the news once in the morning, once at night. Watching it all day long will just depress you. So it's how do you manage your time? Get up in the morning, get ready for work as normal, go for regular walks, eat healthily, and look after those that look after you, particularly your wife, because you're now under her feet every day. And if you don't look after her, you'll feel the consequences.
That's me. That's my phone. That's my daughter. It's her birthday today, so she's ringing me. So she's probably where's my present, right? So yeah, and yes, I get that. You know, you are obviously you know, well, I'm not saying obviously because people won't know it, and I think it's a bit sad actually. But I'm going to kind of share it anyway. A Birmingham City supporter, right? So
yes.
How are you doing in missing Birmingham City and the trials and tribulations that they bring to you on a regular basis?
Well, that is a really good analogy to use football in leadership and football in this talk here. As a Birmingham City supporter, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. You know, Birmingham City are a club that I loyally support through thick and thin. no matter where they are in the world. They could be in the Division 3 as they have been, or they could be in the Premiership as they have been. But they will always bring you certain amount of joy and certain amount of disappointment. But if we use the analogy of the football team, right now, all those so-called experts on TV and radio that think they could manage the coronavirus better, I ask them to think back to how they look at their football team. They will always think that their football team would have won by one more goal or two more goals if only the manager had changed the tactics. But you know what? Only one team ever plays, and that's a team picked by the manager. Support your manager in crisis and in good times, because it's your team that matters.
I absolutely get that. Well, as you know, I'm a Liverpool fan, so I would never put out a better team than Jurgen Klopp, right? Because he's just winning and winning and winning, right? I'm sure when he starts losing, I have many times, we all do it better. We all think that we can kind of find a better way, or that we can get a better player, or that we can position them better. I absolutely.
Let me give you one more analogy. And you know this well as a Liverpool fan. I know this as a Birmingham City fan. You do not know what it's like on the tallest mountain until you've been in the deepest valley. And Birmingham City fans have been in the valley more than you have.
So, you know, you have a fascinating background, Jack, you know, and you know, I obviously know of your work with the, and we met first through the Asian Fire Service Association, you know, and you are, you know, a fire officer. You know, what would be good is just give us a little bit about the history about yourself, right? Because, you know, I know the, you know, the peaks and troughs, should I say, in the same way as Birmingham City, and you're on the peak right now, and you have achieved so much, and you've contributed so much. So it'd be good just to kind of give us a flavour of, you know, where you've come from and how you've got to where you are.
Yeah. I can't keep it very short because it could be a long story at 65 years of age, but no. I was born in India, in Punjab, in a small village, to a poor, very poor family. My father came to the UK in 1954, worked in the factories. Myself and my mother came in 61, and at the we were the last ship through the Suez Canal. When we landed in Southampton, the border agency people at the time said, "This passport says Jagtar Singh is a boy, but surely he's a girl," because I had long hair at the time. Yeah. And my uncle, who was with my mum at the time, said, "I think you should just have a look if you want. He is a boy." And then I went through university, at Aston University, did a business studies degree. And when I came out of university, for people like me with a business studies degree, there were no jobs in business graduates because we knew that racism in the 70s was quite rife. But the fire service took me on. And through the fire service, I was able to go through all the grades as the first Asian officer, first black officer in every grade to chief fire officer level. And then in 2005, I was able to retire from the fire service, and I wanted to give something back. All that learning, all that development that the public service had paid for, I wanted to pay back. And the NHS has given me that opportunity to pay back.
Wow. And, you know, I know that you've shortened the story there because, you know, my story is nothing like that in relation to, but I came to the UK in the early 80s when being Irish was associated with blowing people up. You know, but I felt nothing like your pain. You know, so what was it like in kind of hitting all of those targets, being the first one, being the trailblazer? You know, it must have been difficult and must have been challenging.
Well, it was very challenging, and I think a lot of equality officers will throw a black and white picture up as a PowerPoint saying no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. Yeah. I lived next door to a house like that in Birmingham, Balsall. As I got promoted, there was always the knockers who say, "Oh, you got promoted because you're black," never recognising the talent, never recognising the achievements. Mm. So it was always an uphill battle to convince people. You know, Every BMEP person, or everybody that's different, a woman that's got to the top will tell you, to be me, you've got to be twice as good. And that is so true. Because we, beat ourselves up because we want to achieve, we want to excel, that we think we have to be twice as good, therefore we do twice as good stuff. But I hope, and this is where my journey is about, equality and diversity is not a destination, it's a journey. We are in a much, much better place today than when I came to UK, better place than when I left the university, better place than when I left the fire service. 3 years ago, my granddaughter came out of university with a psychology, sociology degree. 4 weeks later, she got a graduate job in marketing. That is progress. Now, you're supposed to say you're far too young to have a granddaughter of 21, but never mind, you missed the opportunity.
Yeah, well, you know, I've got a grandson that's older than my son, so kind of, you know, I live in that zone. I live in that zone myself. Yeah, but I have a question, which, you know, listening to you there, and you know, both of us being football fans, and you know, and I work with a number of footballers. You know, there's a lot of chatter about, you know, that we had kicked it out, racism out of football, and it seems to have had a resurge. And I was just wondering what your thoughts on that particular topic were, whether you recognise that or whether you'd have any commentary on that.
Well, let's go back to my first point about equality, diversity is a journey, not a destination. The racism we've seen last year is a reminder of that. It's so much better than when I first started supporting football in the 70s. In the 70s, racism was overt. If you remember Clyde Best from West Ham, if you were black, you could be a footballer, but only a forward, because you didn't have the brains to be a midfield player. And then we got the likes of Remy Moses and company, who then proved that you could be a midfielder. But then they were seen as you weren't brave enough to be a defender. Then you got Viv Anderson. Then you were seen as you weren't brave enough to be a goalkeeper. Then you got James. So all the time, role models are breaking down these unconscious biases. And the other analogy I'll throw to you is the cricket one. Cricket, in my time of playing cricket, was no Asians in the professional game. And that was because all the role models were West Indians, because they were the world champions. But if you look now, British Asians are the majority of most cricket clubs below the professional standard. And even in the professional standard, we've had some really inspiring role models, from Ram Prakash through to Butcher, through to Monty Panasa. So role models are a real good way of breaking down these conscious and unconscious barriers. I'm reminded, let me just tell you a story from John Barnes. John Barnes came to the AFSA conference last year, and he spoke about his transfer to
the Asian Fire Service conference, yes.
Asian Fire Service Association, yeah. So he talks about, he said, when I got transferred to Liverpool, there were two racist individuals in the stand, and they were sat in front of my parents. And he says, when I opened my debut and scored a goal, these two guys pipe up and said, he's not as black as we thought. So sometimes there's humour in the racism that we see.
Yeah, and there is humour there, and I do smile at, you know, some of the incredible and biased and racist thinking, because, you know, it's more to do with the stupidity of it rather than, you know, it's not humorous in any shape or form. But you kind of talk to one of my favourite topics there, cricket. You know, you might be all through into the cricket team, but you're not quite there yet in relation to last summer as we had exchanges on that particular matter.
Well, what you did for Steve Smith, you got for grandson.
I was talking to Cameron Bancroft yesterday. You know, so he was due back here in April to Captain Durham, and obviously with the cricket season being pushed off. So, you know, it's not that I'm a cricket fan, but, you know, I do hope the cricket season goes ahead, and I think that, you know, in England there is some unbelievable talent coming through, and I have the the good opportunity of been talking to some of them that played for the English cricket team as well, in some of the podcasts that are coming up. But kind of have to stay in the moment and have to stay with what we've been talking about. Where do you think the government's response is on the coronavirus? Where do you think it's helping, or do you think that we have any issues there that need to be addressed? And I know we talked about the personal protection equipment, and I know we talked about testing, where now they're saying that they're going to do 100,000 a day by the end of April, right? Which for everybody kind of thinks, will they achieve it? And I understand they have to have a target and you have to go for it, and I get all of that. But just talk to where you think the government response is right now.
I think the government response has been risk assessed, so they had a fixed plan. That fixed plan has also utilised what I say is dynamic risk assessment. They've been capable of changing the tactic as new evidence emerges. That's not weakness, that's strength. I think that the testing regime now, as planned forward, is the right way forward. And I'm conscious of my own advice that only one person picks the team that plays. Mm. And I don't want to be a armchair critic. I'd rather advise and help and support. So my focus is on how do we get out of this, and I think we will get out of this. If the quicker and speedier support we can give to the labs that are producing the vaccine, the better. The quicker we get this pinprick fast test that can be done immediately on the spot, the better. And I think then we can start truly assess. But as a fire officer, I often did debriefs after a major incident. I think that will be the critical factor. What are we learning from this? Mm. Many pundits have already said this is not a scenario that couldn't have been planned. Mm. We could have planned for it better because it's a scenario they knew about. Now, when I heard that, it took me back to my fire service college days when I was an instructor at the fire service college. There were two scenarios we used to put out there. One was an aircraft crashing on the M1, and the other one was aircrafts crashing into multi-story blocks. The firefighters at the time would go, "Come on, Jack, this will never happen. It happened in our lifetime." Mm. This virus has spread fast across the world in our lifetime. Let's make sure that the next time something like this comes, we're more prepared. And that would be our legacy of this time for our future generations. We owe it to them that we leave a better legacy for them from the learning we take from this. Every major disaster, you get public figures come up, we will learn from this. And do they actually learn from it? Or do they repeat the same lessons of learning every single time? That's my big frustration. Let's learn from it and let's put things in place that will ensure your son, my grandchildren, will never face this devastation again.
That's very honest and very frank, and I support that. I can't finish without kind of going back to our first encounter, which is the Asian Fire Service Association, and the ambition and the work that they do, across the world, which I think, at the time I was most impressed with, and I subsequently, when I've heard some of the stuff that you're doing, and it would be good just to share with people, what's your ambition and what's your plans for that, because it is a very dynamic and integrated organization that's doing some remarkable stuff.
So thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about the Asian Fire Service Association. First of all, the most important thing those that don't know about it must know is it's an inclusive network. It isn't just for Asian firefighters or Asian fire officers. Our conferences have more people that are not Asian that are Asian. Secondly, it's probably the one staff network that people could come along and go, wow, so is that what a staff network can do? So what we've done internally is sign up to all those equality objectives organisations have. recruit more people from a different background, help to progress them, ensure they're not disproportionately disciplined, give mentoring and coaching. But then the next bit is just as important. How do we use that workforce to reduce inequalities in our community? There is the reason why we do it. And then the other strand to this is a charitable work. So when we first set up, we watched WaterAid do great work, and their work was 500 lives saved a year with a water well. So we picked that strategy up, and we got 15 water wells in South Asia, each saving 500 lives each. We go back and we repair them. But from that, our partnership with the NHS, with the paramedics, a great guy called Dennis Moss, we send firefighters and paramedics over to train young people in schools, first aid, resuscitation skills. We've adopted a blind school in Amritsar where we've supported them. So, and then in Pakistan, we've got a project called Fire Punjab, where our firefighters are going over to Pakistan and helping that country build its resilience around terrorism, around firefighting. So, and of course, the last thing that you and I like, we love to party. We want to celebrate our difference. So every conference has that celebration element as well.
That's absolutely brilliant. Jack, I could talk to you all day. I thank you for obviously taking time out of a very busy schedule. You are a remarkable leader, chair of Coventry and Warwickshire, the work that you've done in the fire service, the role model that you have done through, being the first black person right through the Asian service, the eloquence with which you speak about what I passionately believe about, which is the new leadership for the new model. So thank you very much for your time, and good luck and best wishes, and a clap for all of the NHS. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maurice. It's a pleasure talking to you.